Have you ever felt like you weren't alone, even in an empty room? What if the shadows in the hospital halls weren't just tricks of the light? Nurses and doctors work through the long, lonely hours of the night, but some have encountered something far worse than exhaustion, something that should not be there. These are the true stories of ghostly patients, lingering spirits, and terrifying encounters that make the night shift the most haunted hours of all. Working the night shift in a hospital is eerie enough on its own. The halls are quieter, the air feels heavier, and the sense of isolation can be overwhelming. But for those who have spent long hours in these medical institutions, there are stories, whispers of things that cannot be explained. I have worked in hospitals for years, and I have seen things that still haunt me. Patients who shouldn't exist, voices calling from empty rooms, shadows moving where there should be none. These are not just stories. These are my experiences, and after you hear them, you might think twice about ever setting foot in a hospital at night again. The woman in room 304. One of my earliest shifts as a night nurse took place in an older wing of the hospital. It had a reputation, but I didn't believe in ghosts, at least not yet. One night, I was assigned to check in on a patient in room 304, a room at the very end of the hall. The moment I stepped inside, I felt an overwhelming chill crawl down my spine. The patient, an elderly woman suffering from heart failure, was awake and staring at the window. "Who are you looking at?" I asked. She turned to me, eyes wide with terror. The woman standing outside, "She's been watching me all night." I hesitated, then walked to the window. We were on the 5th floor. There was no ledge, no balcony, nothing but empty air. "There's no one there," I said. The woman grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "She's still here. She's coming closer." I felt something cold brush against my neck. The air in the room turned ice cold. I spun around, but there was no one there. The patient's heart monitor started beeping erratically, and I rushed to call for help. But just before she coded, she whispered something that sent chills down my spine. "She's inside now." The disappearing patient. Hospitals are busy places, even at night. But sometimes patients appear that shouldn't be there. It was around 2 a.m. when I saw him, a frail, elderly man in a hospital gown, shuffling down the hallway with slow, deliberate steps. He wasn't on my patient list. I assumed he had wandered from another ward, so I followed him. "Sir, do you need help?" I called. He didn't respond. I picked up my pace, but as I turned the corner, he was gone. The hallway was completely empty. No doors had opened or closed. No rooms nearby had patients who could have gotten out of bed. Confused, I checked the security cameras. The footage showed me chasing nothing. I was calling out to empty air, but the look on my face in the video, I'll never forget it. My expression was pure terror. I never saw that patient again. But sometimes, on the monitors at night, a figure appears in the hallways, and sometimes he stops right outside my station, watching. The elevator that never opens. Every nurse has an unspoken rule: never take the old service elevator alone at night. One night, against my better judgment, I did. The regular elevators were down, and I needed to get to the basement supply room. The moment I stepped in, I felt uneasy. The walls seemed too close, the air too thick. I pressed B1. The doors slid shut, and the elevator began to descend. But then the lights flickered. The elevator stopped between floors. And I wasn't alone. I heard breathing behind me. Ragged, shallow breathing. Slowly I turned my head. A shadowy figure stood in the corner. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My fingers trembled as I pressed the emergency button. The lights went out completely. Then a whisper, right next to my ear. "Going down." The elevator suddenly jolted and dropped 2 floors before slamming to a stop. The doors finally opened and I stumbled out, gasping for air. Security reviewed the footage. The cameras showed me standing alone the entire time, but the look on my face told a different story. The patient who wasn't there. Some patients never leave, even after death. There was a particular bed in the ICU that no one wanted to use. Staff whispered that strange things happened to those who stayed there. One night, a young woman was assigned to the bed. She had been in a minor accident and needed observation. She was awake and chatty when I checked on her around midnight. At 3 a.m. I returned, but the room felt wrong. The patient was huddled in the corner, eyes wide with terror. "There was someone in here," she whispered. "He was standing over my bed." The monitors showed spikes in her heart rate around the time she claimed to have seen him. I checked the security footage. Her bed was empty, but the blankets had been pulled back, as if someone had gotten out. We moved her to another room that night. The bed was left empty, but when I passed by later, I saw an indentation in the mattress, as if someone was still lying there. Some patients never leave. Hospitals are places of healing, but they are also places of death. Some souls pass on, others linger, lost between life and whatever comes next. These stories are not meant to entertain. They are real, and they are warnings. If you ever find yourself walking the halls of a hospital at night, pay attention. Listen closely, because sometimes the patients you see aren't patients at all, and sometimes they never really leave. Would you dare work the night shift?